The Border. This is a game published by NSV, and it has many of the things that I like in games published by this publisher. They specialize in roll and write games that are very simple and you can play with your family, and my family are the people I play games the most with these days, so that works. I also like roll and play games in general, so all right. Now, in this game here, it's about borders. It's about rolling and writing and enclosing areas on your board. Not super fun of the topic. Closing borders is not, I guess, the greatest message these days. Quite the contrary. We need to be talking to each other, I believe, and try to understand each other and work together. And if this sounds political to you, maybe it is. Who cares? So, the border. The theme, not super appealing to me, at least at some high symbolic level, but the gameplay is good. Now, like some games by NSV do, this one has a box lid that also doubles as a dice tray, and I think that's pretty cool. So what we have here is also a set of dry erase border. They all have the same linear pattern, they just change in the distribution of the colors within the pattern. As you maybe can see, each player will take a board, will take a dry erase marker, and you're good to go. Something to point out, unfortunately, this game is only coded by color, so it is absolutely not friendly to colorblind, color impaired players, which is a disappointment. In 2022, so many games, most games I would say right now, understand that you can just have more people enjoy your games if you color them. The colors also by shape, which you could have done by having simple shapes in the hexes here, and then also simple shapes here on the dice. Not just that, but actually, even if you are not color blind or impaired, such as myself, I still have a hard time sometimes, depending on the light, telling red and orange apart. So I think production-wise, there's a weakness here that I'm sad was not addressed earlier on. The players will alternate taking turns. Each turn you will have the active player roll the dice, so looking at what they got, and then get the chance of re-rolling anything they want up to 2 times. So you get up to 3 rolls. Then the active player will take their own action, which is called the first action, and then all the non-active players also get to take an action, which is called the second action or secondary action. And the first action and second action, they have different kinds of restriction. Now, the first player can choose to use any and all of their dice and mark spaces on their board with this super important restriction. You cannot, quote unquote, open a color section of your net of borders without also closing it. Meaning, if you mark anything with your first action, when you're the active player, you must fill a section. You must complete it. I could not mark those 3 spaces there, and that's it. So right now, pretty much all I could do to mark anything would be to take those 3 blue and mark them here as the active player. There will be ways in which this may seem very restrictive, but there are reasons why this may be a little more interesting later. The non-active players now can use all of the dice as the second action. They can use all the dice that were not used by the active player. So right now here we have gray and orange. All non-active players now can mark gray and orange. The restriction here is different for them. When you're taking the active player's dice, the unused dice, you do not have to close a section. However, you do have to mark spaces that are adjacent to spaces that are already marked on your board. That means, and that's why there are some sections that are marked already at the beginning of the game. So right now, this non-active player can mark that area there. Again, as the non-active player, you don't have to close areas. I could do that. There's nothing adjacent to previously marked areas for gray, so I cannot use that. However, this other non-active player decides to mark that space there. Orange, no, nothing there that applies. Now, suppose that this player is the active player now. Now they get to roll their 3 dice, and now you can see this player has an area here that only requires 2 orange. So that player may be able to do that, and look at that. They totally did. Booyah. Didn't even need to cheat, as I often do when I demonstrate stuff. So right now, the active player could close that area with that. We got 2 red, which is there, which we can mark there. And that also leaves only 1 gray for the other players. And this player here, that, do you remember? They used to be the active player. Now as an active player, they can do that. And this is the player who they're building towards their gray. So the restriction of when you're the active player, you can only mark something if you're closing an area, becomes less restrictive after turn 1, when people will hopefully have a number of partially completed area because of the dice that they were able to place during other players' turns. So it's a very simple idea, but it follows this idea of keeping players entertained and giving them something to do every turn, so that virtually every turn you will have some dice, even if you're not the active player. Sometimes being the non-active player is totally awesome, because if the active player cannot place anything, which totally happens, then the non-active players can use all 5 dice because they're all unused. Remember, usually plays the unused dice of the active player. And if the active player uses all of their dice, well, you still get a consolation prize. You get to choose any one of their dice, and you still get to use it. So the game ensures that every turn, whether you're active player or not, you'll get to place something. Again, the only case where you don't place anything during a turn is you are the active player, and you fail to place anything. But you still got agency because you had a roll and 2 rerolls, so you get to do something every turn. It really follows the modern philosophy of design, where you need to have agency for everybody every turn, because we're playing a game, so we want to be playing the game. Why are we marking these things, by the way? Thank you for asking. It's a very important question. We are doing so because ultimately we want to surround these kind of random subjects by closing a border around them. When I complete an area entirely, where I seclude a subject entirely, I announce it to the group. And so if I'm the first player to do so, I mark the big number under that, and everybody else may as well just cancel the big number there, completely crushing their dreams. Not true, partially, because if you seclude an area that somebody else had already secluded, then you still get the small number. Simple as that. The game continues until somebody has marked 6 areas. Somebody has secluded, completely surrounded 6 areas, any combination of large number, big numbers. Then you finish that turn and you score points. The player with the highest score wins the game. Incredibly simple, does follow, again, NSV's general philosophy of simple roll and play games with this very strong, again, modern feel to them, with the idea of keeping everybody engaged, giving something to mark or to roll or to do every turn. Again, I'm not super happy at the symbolic level with the theme of closing borders. Even if you called it something different, would have been nice. It could have been, I don't know, irrigating fields or something. The game is fairly abstract. Again, I don't think that's going to affect you at a deeper level, probably. But as a game, strategy, agency, affordances, it's a good family game. It's just fun. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you involved. When you roll, you have your decisions to make about what you keep and what you re-roll, which affect not just what you're trying to achieve, but yes, also what you leave behind. Because I'm going pushing my luck and going for a great set, and in many other games, fine, I'm pushing my luck. If it doesn't work, I don't get anything. But on top of that, here in some cases, I'm pushing my luck, I know I won't get anything, and I may be at the mercy, at the risk of giving you 5 awesome dice. So pushing your luck comes with a heavier burden here, so to speak. So you have decisions to make there. And again, later during the game, when you are, even as a non-active player, you may be able to place a certain color in different positions that has been left behind by the active player, and then you got to choose where you want to place those. So you got a game here that plays in about 20 minutes, easy peasy. It starts maybe a little slow because people are, placing things all over the place, especially as the active player. That's all you got. But it really picks up. It really becomes a lot faster because then all of a sudden, boom, 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 air starts getting close very quickly around the border, around the area, because of course if I close this area, that means that I have partially this area ready. As I finish this one is almost ready. So you really have a sense of acceleration later on, which is nice, because though mechanically the game is you do the same thing over and over again, there is a sense of mounting tension as areas gets closer more often in the later game, and of course there is a sense of running, racing for the big results before somebody else does. The game plays differently whether the information about the boards is open or not. I don't remember the rulebook telling you whether that is open information. That will be up to you. If you decide to play with open boards, everybody sees what everybody has, that affects strategy in a way. If you play with everybody just holding their board up, which I think is legitimate also, or it's a variant you can experiment with, then there's more of that guessing. Will these dice be important to that player, and so on and so forth. So the border, it's a nice, well-designed, engaging, light game. It's very light, mind you, but when it comes to roll and play, light games for the family, this is a good one.